Hey guys, Sucker here. I want to make a quick video talking about the kinds of systems I would like to see in 3.12. This isn't a 3.12 league prediction. The new league is being announced in 2 days. But I want to make a video instead talk about what I would like to see mechanic-wise in the new league. So I had a quick look through all the previous leagues just to remind myself of what we've had before. And I'm just going to go over what I want to see and then maybe like how I would go about seeing it. So long-form content. What I mean by long-form content, a play experience which is more than a couple of minutes long. One of my biggest issues with Path of Exile currently is the play, like the flow is really interrupted. So it's a case of if you just want to map, you can't just map because it's like got all the inventory management, there's the conqueror management, there's just all the systems, there's the league mechanics, everything just kind of gets away if you just like, if you just want to map, you just want to map. A good example of long form content would be something like simulacrums. You could make the argument that delve is long form content in the case of you just save up loads of sulfite and then you could be like, I'm just going to delve for the next hour. Synthesis sort of had a similar system. Basically something where you can just be like, I'm just going to do this for half an hour to an hour. Long form content. High accessibility. I feel like a lot of leagues struggle from whatever's shiny about the league. So if you use Legion as an example, like monoliths, what's ever the big shiny thing is very hard to get to due to mostly RNG time gating. Blight would be another good example of this. Blighted maps were more long-form content. They were longer than your usual maps, but the RNG got in the way of accessing Blighted maps. I enjoy Blighted maps a lot. I didn't enjoy Blight League that much because I couldn't do enough of the content I enjoyed doing. The game decided when I did it, not me. Short and long-term goals. A lot of the leagues that are very popular have a lot of this, but there isn't much to interact with. So a really good example would be Legion. So Legion had a very fun every single map. You had a monolith. Some people didn't like the fact it was timed. It was a very popular league. It had engaging content every single map. And then you had like the monoliths as this big thing, but there was no real player control. There was no like min-max. It was a very static system. Incursion. Incursion, another very popular league. I got bored of Incursion very quickly. Incursion was fun for the first month, but there was nothing changing. It was completely static gameplay. It was always the exact same system. So I want something where if you're like, I just want to do this now, I can do it now. And if I want to build up towards something big, I can build up towards something big. Player optimization and control. So this goes back to having more of the like player control of when they engage with the content. And having a system that you can optimize something where the player is making a decision, I think is really important. Because Incursion was a fun gameplay loop, but there were no real decisions. Yes, you could argue, but you've got to pick which room you want to take, but it was so binary because it was just like, these are the profit rooms, these are the inefficient rooms, these are the whatever rooms. When it's a case of like, do I go for the room which gives me the currency, or do I go for the room which gives me maps? Great. Fire item, lightning item, who cares? And then some kind of like meta system for min-max. This goes back to this. So example of leagues which had very good meta systems. Again, these weren't very popular leagues across the player base at large, but they were popular people who enjoyed the stuff. Synthesis was a very popular meta systems league. And Bestiary was a very good meta systems league. So the reason why Bestiary was a very good meta systems league is the beasts were tied to certain maps. So if you really knew how Bestiary worked, you would be targeting specific biomes to get specific crafts. The issue with that and the issue that Synthesis had is it wasn't very accessible content. So with all of that in mind, what's the kind of league that I would like to see which could hit all of these things? So I've been playing a lot of roguelikes in my sort of time off from PoE, and I love roguelikes, and I think roguelikes are one of the best genres, and there's a lot of crossover between ARPG and roguelikes. And I think that a lot of the roguelike systems could be applied to PoE in a way that would make a lot of sense. So a lot of it goes into accessibility. So the way that most roguelikes work, at least the ones that I've been playing a lot of, so I'll mostly be talking from the point of view of stuff like Risk of Rain 2 and Hades. So in Risk of Rain 2, the longer you play, the harder it becomes. Difficulty is directly tied to your timer. You're constantly getting challenged because you're having a case of the longer you play, the more powerful your build becomes. You kill things, you get gold, you buy items, but the content is scaling with you, and then eventually you get to the silly one-shot territory where like you just get breathed on and you die, but your character is so powerful it evens out, and then the run ends, you start again from scratch kind of thing. Now, in those games, you have choices to make of when do you access the content. So using Risk of Rain as the example, so in Risk of Rain, the longer you spend on each like level, the more gold you'll make, so you can buy more items, but the harder you make things. So instead, what a lot of people like to do is they just rush through the early bosses, because you get items when you kill a boss. So you rush through, you get through as many zones as possible quickly, and it's a balancing act of like, do I rush the boss, or do I stay longer and farm? And that's kind of what I talk about where I'd want like the player choice to be, because most Path of Exile leagues, you don't choose when you engage with the endgame system. It's you will do a set amount of encounters, then you do the end thing. You'll collect a set amount of splinters, then you'll do an end thing. I would much prefer a system where it's like you choose. So if you wanted to like use incursion as an example, if you wanted to spam temples, you could do like 3 incursion temples. But at the same time, if you wanted to just map, you could instead run like 100 maps and then do a 100 incursion temple. That's more kind of where I'm kind of looking at it. Hades has another very good similar system. So with Hades, the final like encounter, there's a boss fight, and you need to clear a series of rooms. There'll be like, I think there's 9 rooms or something, no, 7 rooms, and there's a key to the final boss fight in one of those 7 rooms. It's RNG, you might find the key on the first, you might find it on the 7th. But if you find the key, for example, on the first room, you have a choice to make. Okay, I've got the key, I can do the endgame boss. Do I do the endgame boss now, or do I risk doing the other 6 rooms, in which case I could die or I could lose a bunch of health, but get more items to make my character stronger, so I go into the final boss fight stronger. And there are like choices to make that, and that's really kind of what I'd like to see. So my ideal 3.12 league would have fun, engaging content in every single map you run. That would be the short-term goal, and the short-term fun is I'm running a map, the map is fun, the encounter in the map is fun. The long-term goal is whatever the final encounter is, be it a boss fight, be it a monolith, be it a temple, be it or whatever the new 3.12 system is. But then you choose as the player when you engage with it, and that comes into the high accessibility. I think an issue you have with a lot of leagues is you'll have someone who's on a limited schedule, and if the encounter is balanced around, you will encounter this at roughly between like level 90 and 95. If you're someone who can only play a couple of hours a week, you don't get to encounter the league mechanic until like 3 weeks in, and that sucks for those guys, because it's just like they can't encounter it. And then if it's like bugged or something, and it's like I've spent 3 weeks getting up to this point, and then it was like the fight was bugged or whatever, and you lose it, a lot of people just like quit at that point. I know a few people who had that with Harvest, when Ashabi was bugged. It's like, oh, the boss was bugged, and I just spent all this time. I did the 100 maps to get up to the boss, and it just bugged out. Screw this, and they quit. I know a lot of people that happened to. So by having it be a system where you choose when you go into that final encounter, yes, you might make it harder for yourself or easier on yourself and have less reward because you chose to like do it early rather than like fully investing into it by like charging up through whatever it is, be it like doing more missions or collecting more splinters or whatever. If you want to do that content, you could do that content early, so it hooks players in, and I think that'd be good. Long-form content. By having access to, I'm going to do that big thing when I choose to do it, it could even just be a system of, like, you could, like, can you imagine if you could save up temples? If you're like, but Tarke would be impossible to balance if you could super juice it. Well, then just have a system where, like, if you wanted to, you could just, like, spam incursions, and then you could save up, like, 10 temples at once. So if you want to be like, I'm just going to have a temple day, you could just have a temple day. I think that'd be really fun. I know that a lot of leagues these days are very much tied to like stories, and it would kind of break the story loop if it's a case of, but how can you save the like big spooky boss 100 times? Well, it depends how you build the league, right? So if you build the league in a way that it's like, hey dude, I want you to, it's like when you're playing like a single player game, there might be a side quest that you enjoy, like arenas. Like I always like games where it's like there's an arena pit and you go through waves of waves of waves. You choose when you want to do that, and then you could burn through that all at once. Or you could be like, okay, I'll do one of these, and I'll go back to the main quest, and I'll do the main quest for a bit, and I'll go back to the side quests. I generally like it when I can just be like, I want to do this now, and I will just do this. So yeah. Play optimization and meta systems. By having a system where like you could do the content early, or you could like super juice up, or you could save multiple of them up, or you have some control over that kind of system, Gives player optimization, it gives control to the player, not to random RNG, not to random timers, and it means that the players will choose how they want to go about this. Now, the issue you could have, and there is a shortcoming here, players will optimize the fun out of everything. You could have a situation where if like the most optimal way to do something was to like do one mission and then rush the thing, maybe you could set up like you have to do at least 7 or have at least 70 splinters or whatever, right? But like players can choose what they want to focus more on. So in the case of they want to focus more on the big end game thing, they can be like, okay, do I want to get the most end game things per hour, like the most per day, or do I want to get the most profitable one? And then you've got thought. So if you imagine in a kata scenario, like where you could like infinitely farm intel on katas by like doing more safe houses, you pick, okay, so is it better for me to spam the safe houses? You could spend a couple of weeks spamming safe houses, like, or is it better that I like super juice at one safe house? Like as soon as you add that level of like min max, not everyone needs to do it, right? A lot of people just wait for like a random thing to go on Reddit or a random YouTube video, but it gives the players who want that stuff, it lets them control it, and I think that's really important. Having league mechanics which have high accessibility, they have short-term fun, they have things that get you hooked early, but they give you a reason to stay invested in the league long-term and set like big lofty goals. Because you know that someone like MP, right? If he could like super juice something to be ridiculously difficult, that then becomes like a goal to strive towards. And then you've got a thing where like you can be, you know, showing off to your mates that you got a better score than them, or just having your own personal record of like, okay, well, like with Simulacrum, you got up to wave 20, but you didn't get up to wave, you only got up to wave 8 before, or I mean, most people pass 8, but like, you know what I mean? Like if you could keep pushing the waves, like wave 30, you see it with Dell, people like, oh, they've got that new record, I want to get to the next thing. So yeah, that's what I want to see from 3.12. Long form content, high accessibility where you can encounter the system early on, and it's not a case of you're only going to see it like once per character. I hate it when you have that with league mechanics. Short and long-term goals, and then some kind of like meta system for players to control. Let me know what you'd like to see from 3.12. We'll find out in 2 days, whatever it may be. And also worth mentioning, by the way, we have a Baycast on the Thursday after. I'll leave a timer down below. We'll be joined by our usual cast, but also, I'm very excited to say, DatMods will be joining us as a guest to react to whatever 3.12 may be. But anyway, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. What's your favorite kind of a league mechanic, by the way? Bye-bye.